we got Dr. Braxton Hunter, pretty talented and well-known apologist. Shared the stage with the William Lane Craigs, to the Mike Laconas, to all those guys. Jonathan Pritchett, Dr. Pritchett is here, and he is a New Testament guy, and does a lot of stuff, a lot of podcasts, a lot of debates, so on and so forth.
So is the guy on the left Jerry Lewis, and Braxton's trying to be Dean Martin here? The straight guy and the funny guy?
They gave us nothing but tradition and no argument. All they did was get on this stage, yell real loud, and set a straw man on fire.
Okay, now, I was not impressed.
I need a dumb guy. Do I have any volunteers who wants to be my sidekick, the dumb guy?
Respectfully, that sounds like a little bit of a dodge.
I'm claiming victory.
So where I come from, extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence.
Welcome to Trinity Radio. I'm Braxton Hunter, and along with me is
Jonathan Pritchett.
And today we're going to be talking about what it means to be a Christian and why are there so many denominations.
Go Hogs!
This is the first word.
Diet and exercise. I've lost weight. I'm not calling this my weight loss journey because I think that's lame. I'm going to call it my weight loss saga. Saga just sounds better than journey. So, on this weight loss saga of mine, I continually ask, well, how much weight have you lost? Well, almost 60 pounds. But the other question I get asked a lot is, how did you do it? You want to know how I did it? Diet and exercise. I bought no products. I bought a $10 a month gym $20 a month. $20 a month gym membership because I get the tanning, which I need to avail myself of, at Planet Fitness. And I started eating less. Because Braxton Hunter gave me some great advice that I think he got from someone else. He said, if you really want to lose weight, pull the fork out of your mouth. And in my day job, I sit around, and if it's not a fork that I'm constantly spooning food into my mouth, I'm constantly have my hand in a bag of chips, and that's how I gained a lot of weight working at my desk. But I have decided to lose it all through just pulling the fork out of my mouth and lifting heavy stuff.
And now, today's topic.
I really hope we don't embarrass ourselves against Portland State this Saturday.
Are you talking about sports ball?
I'm talking about sports ball, SEC sports ball.
I just got back from a on-campus seminary week, and everything was sports analogies.
Yes.
And so I was sitting back there trying harder to understand those analogies than I was whatever theological concept was being discussed.
You need to sit down with your dad and watch some Tennessee football.
No, I don't.
Yes, you do.
There are more fruitful ways to spend a Saturday or Sunday or whatever day. Monday night football sounds familiar?
Saturdays, man.
Okay, I don't know, whatever. But here we are. There are a variety of sports ball teams.
I'm glad you know that much.
And it doesn't mean that there isn't such a thing as football. Right, or actual coaches, or whatever. See, when I try to do sports analogies, just right out the window. So, okay, but here we are because Jonathan, you just got back from
the
Rethinking Hell conference.
Yes, a fantastic conference in Enid, Oklahoma, at Emmanuel Church down there. Wade Burleson's church. He's a popular Southern Baptist blogger and pastor of a pretty large church down there in.
Shout out to Wade Burleson.
Yeah, and thanks for the books. I promise I'm going to read them. I just haven't had.
Hey, did you give him some of your books?
Oh, come on. No, but you know what that thing they tell you to write about yourself, they introduce yourself.
A bio, yes.
It says, I plan to write some books, but I'm not in the hurry that other people are.
Yeah.
For me to write books, yeah.
All right, but the thing is, would you say it's fair to say that you and I disagree about some things?
Yeah.
Is it fair to say that you disagreed with everyone on that panel, at every other speaker at the Rethinking Hell conference about some things that other people would think are major things?
Yeah, there's a lot of agreement and a lot of disagreement on that panel.
Do you think they're Christians?
Yeah, of course.
Do they think you're a Christian?
Yes.
Are you guys of various denominational backgrounds?
Yes.
Okay, show's over, I guess.
Presbyterian, Southern Baptist, non-denominational, and I don't know what Chris Date actually is.
What brings this up is the fact that it's so often, okay, so there's two things that are brought up here. One is some atheists and people of other religions will say things like, there are so many different denominations of Christianity. And there's 2 points that they want to make with this. One is that we fight amongst ourselves. So like I've heard atheists say, all we have to do is sit back and let you all destroy each other because you'll shoot down the Calvinists' beliefs, he'll shoot down your beliefs, you'll shoot down, and there's all this crossfire so that in the end we all prove each other wrong.
Yes,
that's one
and
thing.
2,000 years into it, how's that waiting going?
Yeah.
This problem of inconsistent revelation is one that I've described really kind of straightforward and simply, and that is the First Baptist Church can tell you what's wrong with the Second Baptist Church, and they can tell you what's wrong with the Methodist Church, and they can tell you what's wrong with the Presbyterian Church, and they can tell you what's wrong with the Catholic Church. And then a good chunk of the Christian community can tell you what's wrong with the Jewish tradition, and they can tell you what's wrong with Islam, and they can tell you what's wrong with Hinduism. All I'm doing is agreeing with all of them.
That's right. We're still all standing here,
Right.
Because it's not
And
a
there I
gunfight.
was on stage with a Presbyterian and a Southern Baptist and whatever Chris Date was, and the I'm non-denominational. And what's interesting is, okay, Chris, at this conference, he was the conditional immortality guy. Okay, so he disagreed with Lindsey Brooks and Marvin Jones, the other 2 speakers. Now, Marvin Jones, and I was the fence sitter, Marvin Jones agrees with me on soteriology as opposed to Lindsey Brooks, with whom he agreed on the nature of hell, which was eternal conscious torment. And of course, Lindsey Brooks, who's eternal conscious torment, agreed with Chris Date on soteriology because they're both Calvinists.
Yeah.
And of course, of all the 4 of us, Lindsey Brooks is the only Paedo-Baptist on there, and the rest of us were Credo-Baptists. So, all that disagreement, yet there we were having fun together and sparring. And
because you know what?
Even
though you're using terminology like sparring, this is not real combat. This is not real practice combat. And while it is true that people of every worldview background have killed each other in the past, it's not a gunfight, it's a conversation.
No, we had fun. When you see the Q&A panel, I think you'll see that it's very friendly disagreement. And by the way, we all went out for Italian and had a great time afterwards. I mean, I don't get this, what they're whining about. You know what it shows? And I said this in my Rethinking Hell presentation. I said, sometimes you think that when you talk to atheists, you think that it's bad to have diversity of opinion on theological views when you talk to them. I've always found it helpful because reasonable, and there's the qualifier, reasonable atheists, when you talk to them, theology is a field of inquiry and study, right? And in science and in history and in the soft sciences and the social sciences and humanity, guess what you have? You have differences of opinion.
But this brings us to the second issue. So the first issue is you guys
I didn't finish
are all
my point.
shooting each other down. Okay, well, put a pin in that. We'll put a marker on what you just said because we're going to come back to it.
Okay.
Go ahead.
But at the same time, there's a remarkable agreement. And we can categorize things as essential matters, secondary matters, tertiary matters. And the most reasonable atheists, that makes sense. And the issue is not that God isn't clear. The issue is our understanding.
Well, see, now that's the second issue. So the first issue is
See, I would've got there if you wouldn't have jumped in.
You're right. I should have never doubted you. But you guys shoot each other all down, and so obviously you believe all these contradictory things. Then secondly is, if your God is so powerful and omniscient and all these wonderful things, then he should have been able to communicate this in a clear enough way that people wouldn't be confused about anything. I mean, it would all just be plain and clear.
Another lack that takes against the evidence for existence of a God is the lack of agreement among believers. If there is a deity that you love and care about, why do no 2 believers agree on any social or moral issue? You name it. Gay marriage, doctor-assisted suicide, stem cell research, death, the war, you name these social issues we're struggling with. You find devout, praying, Bible-believing Christians on both sides of those issues. Paul wrote in the Bible, God is not the author of confusion. But can you think of a single book that's caused more confusion than that Bible? They don't agree. Why not? Why shouldn't it be clear? Why shouldn't this all-loving, all-caring deity make it clear to us? It is not. They have fought with each other over these issues. The 30 Years' War, which was based to some degree on the confessional differences over infant baptism and transubstantiation. People were killed. John Calvin had his friend Servetus killed over a simple misplacement of a preposition.
Why?
Well, but yeah, well, we've answered this before, frankly, this part of it. We've answered this before, is that, first of all Christians agree on certain things, and that's where we're going here in just a minute. But secondly, we have free will, and we are imperfect. Now, it wasn't always that way, but because of that...
We didn't always have free will, and it wasn't always...
We did always have free will, but we were. It's not always the case that we were imperfect. Right, in the garden.
Okay, I see what you're saying.
There was perfection, and people literally were walking with God and could have clarified anything they wanted, to whatever extent they wanted it clarified. The thing is, now, because
Could you imagine the conversation in the garden? God, do I have free will, or am I determined by your divine decree?
Right.
You were determined. So I was determined to ask you that very question with those very words. Yes.
Bazinga.
That would just be an interesting conversation to have. I know that people think,
No, it wouldn't.
It'd just be weird.
Yeah.
So all I'm doing is saying everything that you've decreed me to say. Yes.
That's right. But you could have had some amazing conversations, but we ruined that, or Adam ruined that, or Eve. Somebody ruined that. We hold Adam accountable.
Yeah, Dr. Reynolds, John Mark Reynolds, he said, we'll never get the conversation between C.S. Lewis and Aristotle because we have death in the world.
Right.
And we missed out on some things because of it. We never got to get Aristotle's opinion about C.S. Lewis's thoughts either, vice versa.
Oh, and likewise, to bring it a little more personal, we've talked about your father quite a bit and how he's passed away several years ago of cancer. There are certainly times, I know you've said before, there are times where you would love to just be able to sit down and say, Dad, what do you think about this?
Right.
Even though you could probably anticipate what he'd say about a lot of things, there's still a fellowship there, a relational thing. And he may say something you didn't know. But that was broken in the garden, and we can still communicate with God. We can communicate our prayer petitions to him, and he communicates to us most reliably or most obviously through his scripture. And through the book of nature, too, I think, his power, his glory, and all those things. We talk in Christian circles about the book of Scripture and the book of nature. That's why we think it's weird when you guys that are not believers say about us, well, there's this battle between faith and science. We're like, you can have a battle between faith and science if you want to, but we think there's the book of Scripture and the book of nature, and it all works if you understand it correctly.
Yeah, and we invented that whole thing.
Right. What, science?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's our property, right?
Yeah, and you know what's interesting about that, not to get too far off the topic, but...
Oh, who cares?
Yeah, who cares? I was reading Childhood's End by Arthur C. Clarke.
Yeah, talk about that.
Yeah, and what was interesting is in the narration, not in a character's mouth, but in the narration... Now, not the biggest friend of Christianity by any means, but he did say... that as the overlords kept going, and carrying out their thing, and it seemed like humanity's situation on Earth was getting better. He said the progress of science had almost, while there was a lot of technological advances thanks to the overlords or whatever, but he said the search and the quest of science seemed to go into decline alongside the lack of religion that had steadily increased. Under the overlord's rules. So I thought that was interesting, that there's something about whether or not there's a tension there. There's something about faith and science, and I think it's a right idea, that religion, I guess, gives you yearning for the what else. And scientists say that they have that without religion, but it makes you wonder.
Yeah.
Because whether they pretend, scientists like the atheist scientists, they pretend like intelligent design is not a factor, but why is it when they're always trying to refute intelligent design in their journal articles, like in peer-reviewed articles now they've mentioned it, and the intelligent design crowd didn't think that this would be possible, blah 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 blah. Why are you even acknowledging it if you don't think it is a problem? Right. If you say you don't acknowledge it. So I think that while the tension is artificial, I think that both are necessary to keep on the striving in both disciplines as far as furthering inquiry.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
I think Arthur C. Clarke was onto something that science would probably decline in its grasping and quest for information and breaking new ground. Instead of just rehashing the technology that we already have over and over again.
Well, and it's like we've made this point plenty of times, but skeptics often will say, like, well, hey, look, if we all just accept that there's a God and that he did all this, then the quest for knowledge ends and there's no more inquiry. And it's like, well, okay, hold up. First of all, methodological naturalism can continue. We still don't want you scientists to presume something supernatural did something, because you're not trained for that. That's not your field, and we want you to go as far as you can with the natural stuff.
Yeah.
And in fact, we started doing devotions following what you guys are doing with our family at night. And just last night, we started with Genesis 1. All the devotionals start with Genesis 1.
Oh, it gets interesting in Genesis with young ones, but
yeah. Well, so
not a G-rated book.
but the devotional series that we're using is actually meant to promote questions from the kids. Like, what are you thinking? What's confusing about this? And let's talk about it. So we got in
sister, and it was a sister, but also his wife.
Yeah.
It's gonna get fun. Okay.
So we got into
They all have questions.
We got into evolution. We got into literary genres. We got into all that kind of stuff last night with an 8 and an 11-year-old, and we got into all that stuff. Now, one of the things that came up was this incredibly vast cosmos.
Yeah.
And just this little speck. It's like this is the point where the atheists, on the one hand, want to say, what's the point of all this?
Right, we're so insignificant.
Yeah.
And then the very next sentence, drill yourself with meaning.
That's right. So
give it to yourself, and find meaning and purpose, and it's wonderful, and we have value and purpose in this life.
Right. But they'll also want to say the vast majority of this cosmos, all but this one little speck, is just absolutely, void of life. It couldn't happen there. And then, oh, by the way, it's probably, on the numbers, very likely that there's life all over
aliens
the universe.
everywhere.
So which is it, man?
Come on.
But the thing is, why does science need to end at our Christian eschatological beliefs?
Yeah, it goes back to I'll tell you why. Because it's the confusion of how and why, right?
Yeah.
Metaphysical things, we're thinking about why. Mm-hmm. Physical things, we're thinking about how.
Yeah.
And science, on the NASA's website, I mentioned this in a previous episode, it's why is the sky blue, and it gives an answer. No, the question is how is the sky blue?
Right.
Not why. And when you start, and atheists always say get rid of why, it's so annoying and childish, blah, blah. No, get it. That's ridiculous. Anyway.
Childish because you presume it can't be answered?
Right.
That doesn't make any
because
sense.
you shut off your brain and stop thinking. But no.
It's like my kids, when they were much younger, saying, how does the water come into the house? Or, that whole thing.
Yeah.
It's, well, let's not worry about that. It's not important because we don't know and can't know.
Yeah, when you stop asking
well,
why,
we can know.
When you change, two bad things. When you change how questions into why questions, you lose something. And if you stop asking why questions, chances are you're going to stop asking how questions too, because this is just intellectual laziness. Either way you slice it, and you think that you can kick the pillars out and still not get intellectually lazy. Even Arthur C. Clarke doesn't seem to think so.
So let's do a little bit of speculation and imagine that we have the end times and all that, the resurrected earth, and everything is as it should have been if we had never left Eden. And now, it's like, I think people don't have proper imaginations, and what they think about this, even a lot of Christians, is they think, well, in that day, we're going to be either sitting around on clouds, which, whatever, or we're going to be looking very much like, Greek gods would look and all this kind. It's not like that. We're going to be on the earth with physical bodies and all these kind of things. Why couldn't we continue to explore the cosmos? Why couldn't there still be something like a NASA? Why couldn't there be? The fact that it's so big,
you don't receive the capacity to fly or get your angel wings, right? There's no evidence of that anywhere.
I'm still holding out for flight, but
Well, you'll be the only one who doesn't get it because God's funny.
Yes. Maybe I'll get super speed. Who knows? But anyway, so what are we saying? Faith and science and all that. That's our thing. But here's back to it. So all these different denominations.
Yeah.
God could have communicated it, but here's where we went off course. There was the fall and free will, and as a result of that, sometimes people utilize their free wills to believe the wrong things. Sorry, that's that they choose to, and yes, you can choose what you believe through indirect doxastic voluntarism. But we choose to ignore certain things and believe these things. It's why it is that some skeptics, and I don't mean this to be rude, and if it's not you, if the shoe doesn't fit, don't wear it, but it's why with some skeptics, we have a situation where they're not at all skeptical about, say, what Sean Carroll tells them about the beginning of the universe, but they're very skeptical of what William Lane Craig tells them, or about what the Bible says, or about all the, because Sean Carroll's a physicist. Yeah, but you didn't carry out those experiments. You're taking it on some guy's words for it. Now, that's probably okay in a lot of cases, but the point is, we choose which things we're going to be skeptical about. I'm going to be skeptical about the idea of a God, but I'm not going to be as skeptical about developments through biological evolution.
I know that they all get crazy when I quote philosophers of science who say science is the history of failed ideas, but when I say science, nothing failed.
Well, you have to say it once an episode now.
Yeah.
Because there's some atheists that just turn up to hear you say that.
Oh, yeah, good. Hey guys. And then the other atheists who are just, I just can't believe he said that. And the other atheists are like, settle down, dude. That's
it's faux piety.
Right.
Faux secular piety.
Right, there you go.
How dare you, sir?
Yeah. But so this... Okay, we have Christians who do science as well, right?
Yes.
So, and they disagree because Hugh Ross seems to disagree with whoever Ken Ham hires to do science, because I don't think Ken Ham himself is a scientist.
Right.
Hugh Ross is.
Right. He's an astrophysicist.
Yeah.
And we've got Christians who affirm biological evolution.
Yeah. And so there's differences there as well. Mm-hmm. But I don't think that they're going to stop that. And I don't think that when you get to heaven, going back to the heaven thing, that you become omniscient upon entering the kingdom of heaven.
Right.
When you get to the new heavens and new earth, you don't become God and become omniscient. So it's not like that quest could end, because we're going to need to do something.
Yes. Yeah. But so that's why there are some disagreements here on earth. Another thing is, the quest for truth, even about theological matters, is in itself beneficial. It's a good thing for us to argue about stuff at a Rethinking Hell conference, try to hammer it out. And the Bible says iron sharpens iron that way. Yeah. We become, what better thing to geek out about if God exists than the things that have to do with God and the world that He made.
Yeah, we can do without it would be, yes, and I grant the atheists as they're saying, yeah, but going back to your point that people have killed each other over that, the Catholics and the Protestant Reformation.
Yeah, we disagree with that.
Yeah, horrible.
Is that good enough?
But
I think that's dumb.
But there's also a whole lot of people that really like to discuss theology without being jerks. There are a lot of jerks out there who want to discuss and be jerks, but in communities where there aren't jerks like that, we differ and who cares? I mean, you and I differ on a lot of things. Who cares? We still get along, have fun. That's how normal people act. Not these amped up Facebook Christians, but just normal people. It's great, and we all recognize that, yes, we believe the Bible is inspired and inerrant and all of that. Everyone agrees on that, too, for the most part. Not everybody, but I mean, most evangelical Christians, I would say, believe that. But what's interesting is, even though they agree in principle, they differ on their interpretations, but we all would agree that God could have given us a propositional systematic theology type book. Statement of propositions to believe, a creed. Didn't. And He knew that there would be disagreements, but in His wisdom thought that was fine, because He'd rather tell it mostly in narrative, and then poetry.
And remember, it's a relational, Christianity is a relational faith. And it's meant for these things to be hammered out in community.
Yeah,
and
exactly. That's the key, too.
Throughout the whole, Genesis, the Pentateuch, these things were first learned through oral passing on, and then when we get to, it was written down too, but it was not everybody read, and so you had to read these things to your family, and you talked about these things in community, and in synagogue, and then in church, and the whole thing is a history of, and you'll notice when Christianity has gone off course in a big way is when someone had the imperial force of saying, no, it's this understanding and everybody else is consigned to the fires.
Yeah, when you get rid of the Christians who are hostile or violent or just overly...
But now that's among people that are genuinely orthodox. But, if you don't believe that Jesus was divine, or if you don't believe in the bodily resurrection, it's not that we're arbitrarily picking things.
Right.
It's that, well, okay, in what sense are you a Christian?
Yeah, right.
Right?
But among Christians, once you screen out the violent and the jerks and all of that, it really is, number one, there's a lot of unity around the core historic orthodoxy of the faith. And it's a lot of fun doing that whole faith-seeking understanding thing.
Yeah.
But like you said, when it becomes dogmatism demanding certainty, from a magisterium type thing, that's where the trouble starts. And it's them versus us, and then it becomes violent. And I own that. Unlike atheists who won't claim the atheistic regimes and all of that of the 20th century, I actually claim the garbage of Christian history, of church history, because I'm honest. And I've probably some atheists out there on it. Yeah, this is kind of this. But most of them no. Most of them, won't try to acknowledge the fact that. But
it's like.
But when you screen that out, it's fine.
People are afraid you're going to take their toys away from them, their favorite thing, because like on this Twitter thing, like I'm doing some light, quasi research just for YouTube purposes later on down the road, and I genuinely don't know where I'm going with this yet.
PhD,
so I asked,
he's doing research for YouTube videos.
So nobody else is doing it. So I'm asking the question, like, here's the question that I asked. So if you're an atheist, would you please reply and tell me if you would like, regardless of whether you actually believe that God exists. Like, I understand there's no evidence, gotcha. But so you honestly don't believe for intellectual reasons. All right, I'm not going there. Talk to a presuppositionalist. What I'm saying is, granting that, okay, would you prefer that a God like the Christian God exists? Some Orthodox version of the Christian God. Would you prefer he not exist? Are you neutral on it? Now, out of 31 respondents who actually addressed the subject, 9 of the 31 said yes, some version of the Christian, even granting some Orthodox understanding of hell and all that, I'd still prefer that the Christian God exists. 9 across my social media out of 31. Now, there were a lot more people that commented, but here's what I got the most. Now I get it that people get suspicious. I really do get that, because one side thinks the other side is about to flip a switch and this proves that you whatever, Yeah. So I get that, but I'm genuinely just trying to collect data and don't even know where I'm going, and I'm telling them I am not intending to say, oh, see, you guys prefer that he not exist. That's why you don't believe that he exists. That's not what I'm trying to say. That's not where I'm going with this. And I'm telling them all this, in comments as they're asking. I'm like, but just tell me. But what I got more than anything else was from a couple of famous YouTubers, atheists, and moderately famous. And I'm not talking about you, Shannon Q. And then what I got from a couple of from a bunch of just Twitter people is I couldn't get anywhere with the conversation, because all we got hung up on was, what do you mean by orthodox? What do you mean? I'm like, well, by orthodox, I mean people that affirm, here we go, one canon, one Bible, 2 testaments, 3 creeds, 4 councils, and the first 5 centuries of the church.
Protestants, Catholic, everybody agrees on those.
Okay, those. And I did say, some version of hell, but it's an Orthodox version of hell. And there you go. And what I kept running into is, I defined it for them. No, because Orthodox, that may be what Orthodox means to you, but it doesn't mean it to somebody else and all this. And so, first of all, that doesn't matter, because I'm telling you what I'm asking.
Why did you, but why did you throw hell in there? Because it's such a big objection that I can't worship a God who would punish people.
Because what I really want to know, and this is unclear, so I wanted to clarify. What I really want to know is if one of the Orthodox evangelical understandings is true, would you worship that God? But I wanted to be as broad as I could, but I wanted the hell thing in there, because that's the number one thing I get challenged on.
Yeah, people don't like hell.
About theology and Christian theology.
I don't like hell either. That's why I don't want to go.
Right, nobody's...
I didn't believe the gospel, and you don't.
Yeah, so the thing is, but there are understandings of hell within Orthodox Christianity, so pick any of them. Pick any of those. Yeah. And I just kept getting people, well, Orthodox to you means something different than Orthodox to me. Well, first of all, no. And if it does, those people are incorrect. Not because I'm defining Christianity, but because they're trying to redo history.
Right.
Secondly, it doesn't matter what anybody else thinks. I'm asking you the question.
Right.
I've defined for you what I'm asking. Yes or no? Do you fit this or not? Or commentary, give commentary. But I couldn't get anywhere. And so what I wanted to do on this episode is to have you on here and let's talk about the Rethinking Hell conference where the people were disagreeing about the nature of hell. Is it eternal conscious torment? And there's a show I recently did on this that I'll link, and I'll link our 2 episodes we did on this. Is it eternal conscious torment? If so, is it real fire? Is it eternal conscious depression or separation anxiety or something? Yeah. Is it not? Is it actually you suffer commensurate to your crimes and then you die? Do you just die? Whatever it is, you've got all this range of options.
Or you sit there forever and then get out and go to heaven.
Or evangelical reconciliation.
Yeah.
Throughout the history of Christianity, the concept of hell has been debated and seriously disagreed about to the point that there are a reason why there are more than 1,000 denominations that all identify as Christian, and they agree and disagree on every single point of doctrine, and hell is a big one.
The point I want to make is we can disagree on things that I know you were raised in some church somewhere to believe those people are weird, and because they have a different understanding of me about the flames, they're consigned to the flames. And I get that you've heard all of that. What I'm wanting to get to is Christians disagree about this, about a variety of issues, but as long as they affirm the one canon, 2 testaments, 3 creeds, 4 councils in the first 5 centuries, they're a Christian, and you need to understand that.
that's a historically recognizable set of orthodox principles.
I get passionate when you're around. Why? You're not even saying anything. I'm getting passionate.
Lord knows that's true.
Yeah. So bloviate now.
I actually like it when you get all fired up, because when you get fired up, it makes me look more reasonable. So on disagreements and stuff, one of the things that I set out to do at the Rethinking Hell conference was demonstrate the fact that when it comes to different views of hell, there's already diversity, right? Even within what's known as the traditional view. The traditional view being some sort of eternal conscious something or another where you're conscious and you're being tormented, I guess, is the official name for that. But then I put a question mark by what do we mean by torment? Because you can go back to the medieval ages and read all, people can conjure images of Father Furnace or Dante or whatever. And torture was one view.
Yeah.
And then it kind of...
I like the Wesley quote you had in there where he's like, guys, it already sounds bad enough.
Right.
We don't have to add other stuff.
I was talking about Milton. These poets, there's not any of that in the Bible. It's torture enough that they'll burn. Yeah. It's just like with fire. It's like, no need to embellish it. It went from torture to burning. Mm-hmm. And then you move into it's metaphorical language. But the intensity is meant to... the metaphors are intending to communicate the intensity of the torment, even if it's not literal fire. So it went from, fire to metaphor, and then it went from just the metaphor, but to this talk of the what I labeled the apologetics view, the eternal conscious separation anxiety, where the typical apologist answer, and I'm sure that you and I have probably given it in the past, is primarily centers on the word separation. And it's focused on, you're going to be eternally separated from God. And I only quoted 3 apologists because I had about, 40 different quotes from about 10 different apologists. And sitting there. It's like, I don't need 3 to make a point. But I could have just got quote after quote after quote from 10 or 12 different prominent apologists. It's like, I got to tailor this down. I went long enough anyway. But it made the point, right? So the point was you've got 4 different... Oh, and then I threw in N.T. Wright's, what I call eternal conscious gulluming, where, they call it the dehumanization view, where you become somewhat like Nebuchadnezzar, and you just become eventually just...
Like Gollum when he no longer has the ring.
Yeah.
But he's experienced the ring, and now he's just kind of dehumanizing.
Right. And I left out the divine presence model that Zach Manis wrote a book about. He's got a little bit of different divine presence view than Michael Horton does, but the sense is not separated, but God's presence is always there, and it affects you differently than it affects those who are believers. And so that same presence, you have different reactions to it.
What I run into unbelievers and some hardcore evangelicals and fundamentalists being very similar with is the first time they hear a different view that sounds maybe like it would make more sense on common sensibilities or something. Okay, the evangelicals and the fundamentalists will jump up and say, "Oh, they're just trying to water it down," and the atheists will be like, "You're darn right.
Or
That's what they're doing. They're trying to
Yeah.
water it down because those apologists don't want to just present it as it is because it sounds too bad."
Or as Al Mohler would say, air conditioning hell.
Yeah, air conditioning hell. But the thing about it is, what you would realize, whether you're an evangelical Christian or an atheist, on any number of issues that we differ on as Christians, no. You know why it is? See, there's a lot of us. We're both the kind of people that are happy to, not happy, but we'll gladly tell you if we think it's true, the worst imaginable thing about a particular situation.
Yeah.
If we think it's true. Because you know what? We think it's better that you know the truth, even if it sounds bad, than to try and dress it up and give you an out or lead you astray or something.
Yes, I believe Jesus is God. Yes, God drowned people in the flood, including babies, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah. Yes. That's right. So that's a great example.
Okay,
So,
yeah, we believe things like
the thing about it is we're happy
You
to
just
say
don't like
that.
it, but
when we move on issues, when we move on, say, the age of the earth or something, or some people move on hell, you assume, oh, well, they're just trying to water it down to make it sound better to these lost people, and you lost people, so they're just trying to water it down for
Al
us.
Mohler
No!
Al Mohler probably does not think Thomas Schreiner is trying to air condition hell by talking about metaphor, even though Charles Spurgeon, who Al Mohler quotes approvingly in Hell Under Fire, with all of his talk about torturing you with literal flames, would say that Thomas Schreiner don't talk. Spurgeon says, "Don't talk to me about metaphorical fire." Who would care about getting a metaphorical blow on the head? I would say, give me as many metaphorical blows on the head as you like, because So Spurgeon would have none of Thomas Schreiner's talk, but Al Mohler continues to employ him. So obviously, Al Mohler, who thinks Spurgeon hung the moon, is okay with Thomas Schreiner air conditioning hell, according to what Spurgeon would think.
Well, most of the people watching have no idea who any of those people are, but what he basically is describing is you've got seminary presidents and professors at regionally accredited universities who really believe the Bible and who are Calvinists and say some pretty harsh things. So they're not trying to water stuff down.
Yeah.
They really believe this stuff. And the thing is, you might have not left Christianity if you had taken the time to, and I'm not presuming that any particular one of you didn't do this, but I'm just saying for those that may not have, again, if the shoe doesn't fit, don't wear it. But you might not have left Christianity if you had taken the time to survey all the views.
Right, 5 views just within the so-called traditional view.
On the most recent video I did, I talked about Penn Jillette, and he said that if you read the Bible, you'll become an atheist. And I thought, this makes no sense. If you read the Bible, you'll become an atheist. I don't grant what he's trying to say there, but even if I did grant it, the most you'd get out of if you rejected the Bible is that the Judeo-Christian God does not exist.
Right.
It wouldn't mean that God doesn't exist. Now, of course, I'm very confidently a Christian. But the fact of the matter is, we get this kind of stuff all the time where people make a move, make a jump, because they got stuff out of order in their web of beliefs. Are you looking for a toy to play with as well, since I'm playing with a toy?
No, I was wondering where Han Solo is at.
I think he's in my office.
Okay.
Here's Optimus Prime. But the thing about it is, if you would survey these views, you know what you might come around to is, oh my gosh, it all fits in place. The puzzle pieces fit in just right. And you may still disagree with other Christians, but that's fine. That's background to what we started talking about. But people just decide the most fundamentalist understanding of a passage has to be correct, and the atheists agree, and so they walk away from Christianity when... No, maybe there just was a different understanding of Christianity that was held all the way back to the early centuries of the church, but your pastor didn't know about it or disagreed with it, and so you rejected Christianity.
Yeah, this one...
Read more books.
Yeah, definitely.
Why am I so amped up today? I'm sorry, guys. I'm sorry. You secularists and atheists and agnostics out there who never see me get this way, I love you. And I realize that
you get that way in the studio where you don't on your videos and your response videos. Well, here's what I think.
It's the prime.
This is where you have to vomit up all the things that you held in, because I think part of it. Here's the thing.
That is what's happening.
Yeah, but I have said this to the atheists in our audience before. Either be reasonable in our comments, or we're going to take you for what you present to us, and what you present to us is non-thinkers. and non-readers.
A lot of them, not all of them.
Not all of them, but the fly-by-night atheist YouTube commenter, for example. I mean, or on Twitter, because we've talked about this before. How atheists in the past used to be interested in theology. Some of them still are. We'll qualify everything, but yeah, you got to familiarize yourself with this because it's just a bumper sticker. I would never worship a God who'd fry people in fire for 5 billion years.
Yeah.
That. Who's talking about that besides Spurgeon and Wesley? And fundamentalist preachers. But you know what? That's a possibility.
Yeah, if it's right, that's all the more reason to be saved.
Yeah.
What I say all the time, and I've said it on this show, is if I end up preaching on hell, I read what Jesus said.
Yeah.
And then you know what I do? I say, maybe you're thinking that could just be imagery.
Yeah.
Okay, but the New Testament authors that talk about judgment,
it's pretty scary
it's
imagery.
not good. You don't want part of it, so
And of course, there's the conditional immortality view, which Chris Tate gave a really good presentation to support that, and brought in Ignatius and talked about the relationship with that in the gospel. And he did a really good job presenting his case, which he normally does a good job presenting his case.
Of course.
Whenever he gets around to posting those on the Rethinking Hell YouTube, you ought to watch it.
But what should be said for sure?
Or if you're so anti-hell and you're so mad about hell because you think it's so awful, actually check out Lindsey Brooks' thing. He talks about the objective beauty of hell.
Yeah, I want to hear that because I don't know what.
So I mean,
no, you know what you need to do.
You're gonna say, oh, well. I mean, are you kidding me? It's objectively beautiful that people are going to suffer in hell. Well, he argues that.
Quit arguing with theists for a minute. Quit, you atheists out there, and you theists that argue with atheists. Quit arguing about that for just a minute. I want you to keep doing work on that, but go check out what traditionalists who do believe in eternal conscious torment have to say. Go check out Rethinking Hell and argue in their Facebook group with them for a little while, and learn some stuff.
Yeah. But this whole, you also have to tell them to what you say normally, which is to step into you have to put the jacket on, step into that.
Wear the clothes of that worldview.
Right, if you're going to.
And see if it internally makes sense.
Yeah, and then critique it, because that would probably help make your critiques better, other than just you don't like it. Because, okay, so what? There's a lot of things that are real that you don't like. There's a lot of things that are real that I don't like. That's not an
Why would you want to believe in a God that would allow for hell, like you said? Why would you want to believe in a world where there's cancer?
Yeah.
Why? Tell me why. Well, because cancer is real. Right. That's why we believe in hell.
Right.
That's right. That's right. Well, but that's not a loving God. No, the loving God sent his son to die to take away your sins so you wouldn't have to go to that place.
Amen.
The reason there's a place like that is because God is not just all loving, but since he's good, he's also all just.
Yes, a God who is indifferent to evil and won't punish is not good.
What I always say is, if we captured Adolf Hitler or somebody, and we just said, let's just give him a hug and let him go back to Germany. Yeah. No, that's not good. That would be bad.
Right.
And if God is a good God, then he's going to do the good thing, which is to dispense justice. Yeah. So, by his nature, he must act justly with regard to you and your sin and my sin. But because he's a God of love, you see how if you plug in justice and love, because he's a God of love, he made a way for an everlasting person to take the everlasting penalty so you wouldn't have to go to hell.
Yeah, you know
so take advantage of that and quit arguing with us about it.
And when it comes to hell, you know what? All these different views on hell, just even within the 3 primary views, there's differences. You know, we talked about the 5 different ones that we could name on just the traditional view. You know what they all agree on? Hell's real.
Yeah.
Hell's horrible. Right?
That's right.
Hell's eternal.
Yeah.
And hell could be avoided.
That's right. And if you're of a persuasion that we're of, anyone can freely choose to avoid it by believing the gospel and trusting Jesus. I'm a bit ashamed, Jonathan, because I've acted uncouthly with respect to you all.
No, I think it's just a certain segment of people on social media that get you riled up because they demand that you take them seriously by not posting anything worthy of taking seriously.
I mean, I don't actually feel bad because I did apologize for everything, and I didn't even actually say anything all that bad, but still, I repent to you. And
No, I don't. All I'm saying is, yes, you can be annoying, and if you stop being annoying, we wouldn't have to chastise you for being annoying. We do want to have serious conversations, but if you don't want to have serious conversations,
and thank you to those.
Bow out.
Thank you to those that do.
Yeah, just bow out of the conversation.
I posted a video today.
We are participating in the great conversation of Western civilization that is immortalized in the finest books of ever written that you can still find on eBay, relatively cheap.
And the God Delusion's not one of them.
Yeah, but and nothing I write will ever be one of them either. But what I'm saying is, there's this great conversation that has been taking place in the Western world, and we want to participate in it at the highest level, not at the lowest level.
Yeah, I know you keep ramping down, but I always still have more to say.
I know you do. That's why we need to wrap this up.
Thank you to those of you who do engage in meaningful conversation with us, because like just today, I posted a video about, is atheism a worldview? And you know what? I do not answer that the way that most Christians and atheists would probably expect me to.
Yeah.
I answer it in a very nuanced way. Within a few minutes of me posting it, I had people, atheists, on there, no, it's not a worldview, how dare you, blah, blah, blah. And I'm thinking, if you just watch it,
right,
you wouldn't have reacted that way.
Yeah, you can always tell when people don't watch the videos.
Yeah.
The first, you've even set traps for them.
Yeah.
Where you put at the comment, if you say X, Y, and Z, I know you didn't watch the video.
That's right.
And of course, they'll comment with that
Step
very
in the trap.
thing that if they'd have watched the video, they wouldn't have fallen for it.
Or at least they would have said, I know you're trying to set me up, but I still think.
Yeah.
You know, they could have said something, but they didn't.
Yeah.
Because they didn't watch the video.
At least watch the ads so we get paid.
Yeah. That. You're a mercenary.
Mercenary capitalist.
All right. Well, hey, I've enjoyed this. Listen, you may not know this, but Trinity
Radio. You feel
Radio,
better getting all of this out?
I do feel a little bit
See,
purified.
it's cathartic. This is cathartic. Going all prime is cathartic. That's why I do it every time.
But you may not know this, but we are a part of a podcast consortium.
A good one.
And I often love to point people to other good apologetics channels like Capturing Christianity, Mike Winger, What Do You Mean?
You're doing it now.
Things like that. Yeah, and I do that. That's free. I do that as a freebie. But we are in a podcast consortium where we team up with other people so that it's not all just apologetics all the time. If you want to learn about soteriology, to what degree does God determine what goes on in this world? To what degree do men have free will and women have free will? You could check out Soteriology 101 with Leighton Flowers, one of our professors. Maybe you just like to figure out what the Bible has to say, and you're ready to stop those bajillion channels where atheists go through the Bible and make fun of every verse. Maybe you could check out the Bible Bro Down with Billy Wendland and Matt Chisholm, because those are some of our close friends.
And argue with them. They need some more atheists to not argue, just dialogue.
And that has a little bit of a theological flavor to it because they talk theology too. But maybe you want to get just a comprehensive understanding of the whole Bible and theology and everything, like the best of all of these things. Yeah. Well, then you could go check out Steve Gregg's The Narrow Path, a daily radio show that is also has a podcast, but also has verse by verse through the whole Bible
on the website.
And so you can check that out at Take the Narrow Path.
Yeah, you can call him and ask him anything, and he's ready for it. I've actually seen him do the show live. It is impressive.
Yeah. He's one of our professors too. So anyway, we hope you'll do those things.
And we want to thank the patrons.
Yes, thank you, patrons. Listen, we need more. And if you want to be a patron, you can click somewhere up here.
Our patrons are the best, though. And if you are new to the patron, new to being one of our patrons.
If you're a nude patron?
No, if you're new to
being a patron.
A Trinity Radio patron. Yeah. We want to invite you to come to Trinity Radio Primetime Discussion Group. And if you private message me your phone number, you can get on our super exclusive Marco Polo group.
That's right. And Marco Polo is a video chat app where we talk all day, every day with people that are in that group.
That's right.
Or at least he does. And I should more. Sorry, patrons. But if you'd like to be a patron and help us out, we'd love that. And you can click in the top right-hand corner of this screen, or you can go to patreon.com/Trinity Radio. And there's some free books and stuff in there that you get, some free videos, but don't do it for the free stuff, even though we try to do that when you do it
for
more.
The free.
Do it because you believe in what we're doing, because you might not like the free stuff. So, all right, well, that's that, and we'll see you next time on Trinity Radio.
This is the last word.
Dear YouTube and podcast family, I am beginning my weight loss journey. 3 times in my life, I've lost at least 45 pounds. and the cycle has now begun again. Dr. Pritchett has inspired me, as well as a lot of you people out there. But there are certain people whose advice I don't necessarily want. And that is advice from people who have never been fat and who have only ever been skinny. Or people who have only ever been fat and never been skinny. I want advice from people who have been fat and are now skinny. And that is why Dr. Pritchett is a perfect example of who I would like my advice from. I hope that you'll pray for me and encourage me as I begin this journey. Perhaps some of you will join with me and we can make the world a better place, or at least a lighter one.